Hi, I'm Mark S. King from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a writer, an activist, and a survivor of 40 years living with HIV. And I am here to recruit you. This is The Recruiters.
Hi, and welcome to The Recruiters. I'm former New York State Senator Tom Duane, and first let me just say, it's true, we do recruit. We recruit queer people to come out. We make it easier for them to come out. We don't make people queer. If they are queer, we just make it easier for them to come out. However, this show is about recruiting concerned people, scared people, angry people, really everybody, because we all have something to contribute to saving this country. There are so many problems and threats to our freedoms and our democracy. It's happening in front of us, and we have plenty of work to do. I'm not retiring, so let's get started. Now, today we're going to speak to someone whose work and advocacy has inspired me for years, and we're going to talk about ways we can all get involved to transform the city and the country and criminal justice, and there's going to be some good stories too. This is The Recruiters.
Time to rally. I scream, you scream, we all scream because ICE is in our neighborhoods. It's unbelievably scary. Agents from Immigration and Customs Enforcement are coming into homes, schools, restaurants, etc., looking for undocumented residents and foreign-born supposed criminals. Of course, we've seen on the news how they've also picked up a gang member who wasn't a gang member, a queer makeup artist, and a small child with a rare cancer. It doesn't sound like ICE is employing the best and the brightest. As if this wasn't frightening enough, fake ICE jackets are among the most popular selling military jackets on Amazon. For the low price of $29.99, any Tom, Dick, or asshole can imitate an ICE agent. Whether you're an immigrant or not, knowing what to do when the Iceman cometh is VV important. If you are in our country, you have rights that are guaranteed by the Constitution. Above all, stay calm. You're not required to give ICE any information about your immigration or citizen status. If you are a citizen, you're not required to assist ICE or give information about your friends, neighbors, or coworkers. If ICE comes to your door, do not open it for them unless they have a warrant signed by a judge. If you can't see it through a peephole, ask them to slide it under your door or show you through a window. The warrant must be addressed to the correct person and signed by an actual judge. Say only 3 words: lawyer, lawyer, lawyer. Then invoke your right to stay silent. Except you can't just remain silent. You have to verbally invoke your right to stay silent. Then shut the fuck up. Do not lie to ICE agents or provide false documents. If they force entry into your home or workplace, do not resist. Tell them you do not consent to them coming in, are invoking your right to stay silent, and want to speak to a lawyer. Film everything. This is important for everyone, whether you're an ICE's targets or you see someone in your community being taken away by ICE. Film, take pictures, document the whole event. We have to take care of each other. If we know our rights, ICE won't be able to take the heat.
I am thrilled to be here with Robert Suttle, who is a tremendous advocate and an advocacy consultant, which I never really thought about that you needed one in your life, but you do need one. Like, I'd like to think of myself as an advocacy consultant. I'd like to think of this show as an advocacy consultancy, and so you are the perfect guest. Anyway, Robert's a leader in so many ways, working on critical issues, HIV criminalization, which I'm also passionate about, stigma, discrimination just in general, not just HIV, AIDS, but also social justice, equality. Robert chairs the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation Council of Justice, and is a global advisory panel member of the HIV Justice Network. And he's also the co-founder of the Zero Project, and he authored the foreword to Alexander McClelland's book, Criminalized Lives, HIV and Legal Violence. You have more stuff after your name than I ever had in my name, so that's good for you. But it didn't all come from good stuff. And do you mind if I ask you a difficult thing to begin with?
Sure.
So you had a terrible thing happen to you, like a grotesquely unfair thing happened to you. Do you mind sharing that?
Sure. I was diagnosed in 2003, HIV positive. I was attempting to enlist into the military at that time, and I was 2 months shy of graduating college in December of 2003. And so I decided to enlist into the military to move further with my career that I wanted to have or wanted to build. And I was not expecting HIV to be a part of that. So I went through the enlistment process, and I received a letter in the mail like a day or two after that. The letter stated that, I needed to come back because there was an issue with my testing.
Even worse.
Yeah. And so I remember it was like Columbus Day weekend in October of 2003, and I was just left wondering, like, what could it be? And so I was online looking for things that I
Would disqualify you.
yeah, basically. And so when the day finally came that morning, I went, and that's where I received the news that I was HIV positive. And as a result of that, I was unable to continue the enlistment into the military. So that is how I found
So
out.
they just disclosed it. No counseling, no nothing, just disclosed it and said you're out?
Just a medical doctor and I believe the commander sat me down and told me that information. And I just remember the doctor saying that I could go on and have a healthy life. And
Well, that's something, but it's not
yeah,
a lot of information for you just finding out.
absolutely.
And how long did it take you to, like, because it's such a shock, right?
Yeah, definitely a shock. And so I was in a shock for quite a while because, as I was saying, I was 2 months shy of graduating college. And so I still don't know how I finished the last part of those courses between October and December. I still don't remember, but I somehow I got through
You
it.
did, and we're all grateful.
Yeah, I got through it, and shortly after that, I moved to Florida to work at the Disney College program. Again, trying to, since I couldn't get into the military, I was like, well,
Disney's the next best thing.
yeah, and I was a business major. I was like, well, I'm interested in HR, so let me go and see if I can just start from the ground up and to some sort of entry-level role into HR. And
There
so,
are a lot of homosexuals who work for Disney, in Disney World, maybe on this, in the field, not necessarily in the front offices, though.
yeah, they
So-
even have gay days there in Orlando. I don't know if they still do, but they did
Right.
for a while. And so I dealt with my diagnosis between leaving home and going to Florida. And so all the feelings that people feel when you get that diagnosis, I went through that process. And I was also dating someone at the time, too, who also relocated to Florida and was also part of the Disney program. And so in some way that was good, but in some way it was bad because I didn't quite have their support.
Yeah.
And so the relationship ended, but partly because I would say my fault, because I was newly diagnosed and I really didn't know how to handle or deal with that news. And then I think it was hard for them as well, because all this was new to both of us.
And they had they tested
They
themselves?
in fact, they did test and they tested negative. And so,
that
so yeah, there was a lot of factors there that create this dynamic where it just makes it harder for both of us.
Not sure everybody understands like what the dynamic of that, in a relationship, especially when it's brought into it. It's
Yeah.
huge.
It's really hard, and looking back, I realized, like, yeah, that was a lot. That was a lot to handle, and so so that relationship ended, And just through the counseling that I was able to get, through the services that I was able to tap into, I just one day decided to pick myself up. I knew I wanted to live.
Yes.
I knew I had plans for my life,
Yes.
whatever that was going to be. But now I had to be considerate of the fact that I was living with HIV and just trying to move forward with that. And so it took me a while. Eventually I moved back home. I wasn't in Florida for, I would say maybe under a year, because I was homesick and as well as dealing with my diagnosis. And so,
Were they the first person you told?
in fact, they were one of the first people. And I also had another best friend
And
so they
the
were only
circle
two
was
people.
small, tiny, right?
Yes, at that time, yes, definitely, because I didn't know how to deal with the
No.
diagnosis and
Family is the hardest of all to tell.
Yes,
even
absolutely.
Though even though they say, well, I would have wanted to know, but they're the hardest.
yeah,
so.
and as you said earlier, I was in a state of shock. So
Yes.
even though I was present and just going through from day to day when I learned about my diagnosis, I remember when I got home, it's like I could see my grandmother in the kitchen cooking, and it's like you have something inside that you want to share, but
Yes, it's huge.
It's huge, but you just can't share it just yet because I didn't quite understand what it means to be diagnosed. You just know that you have it, but no one tells you about, okay, this is how you're going to live out the rest of your days with it, moving forward.
It's just, I have a past. So, but in 1983, they said use condoms. And so for the past 40-something years, I've been using condoms. So I know I was infected before 83, but I was in a study for gay men and depression starting in 85, and maybe the next year they said, we'd like to test your blood, or maybe it was that year, and I volunteered for that too. But everybody said, don't find out because there's nothing you can do about it. So I waited till the end of 1988, and I went, and the very lovely woman told me that I was positive, and I sat there. She said, how do you feel? And I said, I'm not surprised.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't tell anyone, and I was getting ready to run for office. And when I ran for office the first time, I lost, but I also did not disclose my HIV status because I hadn't really totally internalized, like I went to ACT UP. I was a body, not a leader, but, it's huge. And there was no, you're going to live with this. I didn't find that out till the 96, right, whatever. But I understand I'm not sure everybody understands how huge how huge it is.
It's a heaviness that you feel while you're in the state of shock. And again, I didn't know which direction to go, except I knew I wanted to live. And whatever that meant, whatever I had to do that, then I had to take those steps to do that. And I did. I immediately went into
You're telling me you made that decision, which isn't like,
Yeah,
it's
on my
an
own.
actual, yes, but it's that's will. I'm willing myself to have a life, which, was great. I want to ask you, something terrible happened to you. Do you mind talking about that?
Yeah, so if we fast forward 5 years from the year I was diagnosed, it was New Year's Eve of 2007 going into 2008. I met some friends at a gay bar there in my local hometown.
As someone who likes guys from time to time, might be going to a gay bar with friends.
And so I met someone there that I noticed, but didn't know them very well. And so as the night went on, we
I'm
started.
not supposed to say this, but I would have noticed you. But anyway.
Thank you. So we just decided to go home with each other. And so I did go to his place. And that particular night, we laid in bed and just sharing stories about ourselves. I mean, it's late at night. It's not much, going on. We decided initially not to engage in sex because, and I'll say that at that time, I felt I had disclosed. Because thinking back and the experience that I've gone through, it's like, well, what happened that night? And so I reflect. But I know I disclosed. I felt that I disclosed. And so there didn't seem to be any issues. But
Even though, by the way, the responsibility is as much the other person to protect themselves, no matter, because you could have been a big fat liar too, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I would just say,
it's a shared thing.
I didn't know their understanding of HIV, but we talked about being gay and just about our careers and what that meant. And I just remember them sharing that they had challenges just being gay and trying to be a professional, and so, I can only imagine if HIV was a factor. And so we didn't have condoms, so we agreed not to have sex, at least initially. But passions get the best of us, and we did. And the relationship went on for at least 3 months. But unfortunately, we didn't always see eye to eye either. And so there's that part. And so when the relationship ended, he went his way, I went mine. There was a mutual friend who knew about my status because I shared it with them. And for some reason, that friend felt the need to confront me about it.
None of his business.
And so they put me on three-way and asked me, was I in fact HIV positive? And I didn't deny it because I didn't feel I had to deny it because I felt I had already shared that information, not only with the mutual friend, but with the person.
Right.
And the reason why I say I felt I disclosed because I realized looking back, you never know people's understanding of HIV, and people react differently in so many ways with it. And so, do I feel that
no matter what, it doesn't matter for what happened to you? You know what I mean? But anyway, continue.
And so as a result, the person was already upset with me when the relationship ended. So this just added more fuel to that fire. And as a result, they said that if they tested positive, that they would press charges against me. And so they, in fact, pressed charges against me, but I have no way of confirming that they were in fact HIV positive, that they at least contracted it from me. And so
they get to know about you, but you don't get to know about them. I just before I got to Albany, they had already passed bills that presumed if you were a firefighter or a cop or correction officer, if you got HIV on the job, it was presumed you got it on the job and you got a better, disability retirement. Which is ridiculous. What are they doing that they would get it? Everybody wanted that presumption, and I put an end to it because it sent so many of the wrong messages, and they sent the worst possible message to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was in care at the time, and so I felt I was doing the things that I needed to do to take care of myself. And
even if he was positive, which we'll never know, you weren't his first, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I definitely learned afterwards, and just even
in hindsight,
knowing that I definitely was not the first person they had been with, which is the troubling thing about diagnosis of HIV or living with HIV, this sort of assumption, we're not automatically given the skills to know how to negotiate our health status, or the assumption is that, people are just automatically doing bad things when that's not the case.
Predators.
And what I've understood is that I didn't realize how vulnerable to HIV I was. I didn't have people around me talking about HIV. There's this thing that people didn't want this. No one does.
No.
But to sit me down and say, hey, as a black man or as a young black gay man living here in the South where HIV is so prevalent, these are the implications, as a result of that. No, I didn't have that information then. No one shared that information. And also, I didn't know that being in I knew black people could be arrested and go to prison, but in terms of the crisis around mass incarceration and how prevalent that was in the state of Louisiana, which is where I'm from, the odds of contracting HIV and the odds of facing incarceration were very high. My home was investigated. How I found out was I came home and there was a search warrant left. And so I looked at the document and it just listed things that they had checked out in my home or that they had taken with them as evidence.
By the way, condoms would be proof also if you had condoms in the house, as opposed
or
to
just a lab report, from your previous appointment. And they even had things listed that had nothing to do with HIV. I think I had some sinus or allergy issues, and they listed those as medications.
They just were able to do it, so they did.
Yeah, and they took up my calendar, like a dress book, I guess, looking for names of people. And so that is how I learned that, wow, there's an investigation going on, as well as phone calls that were made by the sex crime detective. And so that went on for months. I went to court, I got an attorney. Eventually I was let go from my job. I actually worked for the Second Circuit Court of Appeal for the state of Louisiana at that time. as a student and coming back as a professional. And so, and that was what my career was. I wanted to be, to be a court administrator or work in the courts.
Yes.
But unfortunately, that was cut short because of
I mean,
this.
but you would think they would be slightly more educated and sophisticated, but sadly, no, they're not.
No, it was as if like they were just stripping or ripping everything from me that I had gained. And so it was very embarrassing, I will say, to be arrested at work, which is where I was arrested.
There were so many bills that were criminalizing HIV, not just stigmatizing, but criminalizing and forced testing. Lots of forced testing.
You're saying that's 1990. I mean, this is 2008 is what I'm experiencing. So,
and I don't even think, people say, oh, liberal. No, I'm not sure things are so very different. I can't tell you how many times I said, there are only 4 ways you can get it. Sharing needles with a hypodermic, with a drug-using person, blood transfusions, breastfeeding, or unprotected oral, vaginal, or anal sex. And I said that so many times they just stopped with their bills. They didn't really know how to understand, but they just didn't want me to say that anymore. So
where I worked, like no one stood up to say, hey, this is what we know about. Like there was no discussion about it. I just showed up for these hearings, embarrassed because they would say what the charge was, and I'm in the courtroom with full of other people that don't know me.
Yes.
And yet we are standing up before the judge.
The most personal information.
So all your personal information is constantly being
the HIV
told
sex
over and over
stuff,
again. Yeah.
But you did something and have been doing and continue to do great work.
Yeah, thank you for that. I would say I really didn't open my mouth about this experience until end of 2011, because I just got released from prison in January of 2011. So I was quiet for a good few years because I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to explain these experiences. However, when I was released from prison, what I did was started volunteering. I was like, how did this happen? How did I get here? And that has been the journey that I've been on to try to figure that out. And I've learned a lot in terms of data and history as it relates to me as a black man, black gay man coming from the South, as I said, with the epidemic of HIV and the crisis, as well as mass incarceration. And understanding and trying to understand what does that meant. That meant for me to be silenced. That meant for me to be erased as a person. And so these things were intentional. Yeah, in some instances there was no guarantee that you would get all your meds. Thankfully, I was on a cocktail where I took at least 3 pills at that time. When I was incarcerated, there were moments where I may have gotten 2 of the 3 cocktails. Yeah, and they may or may not have the budget to support.
You talk about it all the time now, which is great. Talking about it at all is a lot. Most people don't. It's incredibly empowering for you to speak out, and particularly because you're an African-American man. I'm
automatically seen as a criminal because I'm black and a black man, but to be gay and to be living with HIV, and then now to be a formerly incarcerated person, and in some instance also have to be on the registry in the state of Louisiana,
Which, by the way, the level is based on how much you can pay for a lawyer.
Pretty much. And thankfully, I had some money at the time, but it was like my clerk's retirement.
But it happens to teenagers get on the sex offender registry for this kind of thing.
It's possible. It's very possible.
So I talked about all the things that you founded, the boards that you're on. Tell us again, because I want people to know what they are, because I want people to know that there's a place that they can go if they want to advocate, if they want to get information, if they want to feel better about themselves. Where can they go?
Yeah, you can definitely go online and just type in HIV criminalization. It'll give you all the information there that we didn't have at the time. Although there's been work that's been done on this issue before 2012, but that was pretty much the beginning.
Yes.
So when I decided to open my mouth about this issue, I was invited to these other high-level consultations or meetings that people from around the world that were interested in this issue. They had meetings in Geneva, they had meetings in Norway, and then my colleague who I found when I got out from those sort of high-level consultation meetings around this issue, the colleague reached out to me and said, hey, if I could find funding, would you be interested in starting an organization with me? And I was like, sure. And we call that organization the Zero Project. And so I am one of the co-founders. And so through that organization, I like to think we represented the voices of people who've been directly impacted by HIV criminalization. And so through that organization, we were able to find other people who had similar experiences around HIV prosecution. And we spread awareness. We've done many community forums and
tell them a little bit about how they have to fight to stop it in their own states. I mean, once they know about it, they're like, this is, what are they talking about? Like, I got to do something to end this, and it's tough work.
Here in the United States, it's at least 30 plus states, and a little less now because we've had at least up to 5 states to repeal their law, and others have at least modernized. We realized that these laws did not reflect the science around HIV today.
It was a kind of music, all this stuff, which is the most simple thing of all.
And I would just want to add that people are also interested in the movement. I suggest they go to the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation and learn of other stories, and also follow us with the movement. There's various coalitions across the country that have been started as a result of this issue. And so you might be living in a state that may have a coalition.
Yes. So I just want to thank Robert and that I got to speak with someone so amazing but so important. And I know this is like a drop in the bucket for the struggle, but every drop counts. So with the greatest of gratitude. And I'm Tom Duane, former state senator, and thank you for watching, and please watch again next week. Bye.
I need to talk about my teal hair because I am often asked about it. So this is the story. I kind of always wanted to color my hair, but and I probably could have gotten away with it while I was a state senator, but I didn't. I looked like everyone else. I wore a suit every day, 1,000 times. But anyway, I haven't been there a long time. So I went to a Kylie Minogue concert. I had an extra ticket. I gave the extra ticket to a friend of mine. I walked in. I was walking behind my friend. I looked down and I said, "Oh my God, I love that color." So the person, my friend's name is Justin. So Justin told me what beauty parlor to go to. So I went to that beauty parlor. I said, "I'd like Justin's teal, please." They're like, exactly what you're talking about. And Caitlin was the color expert who, by the way, had studied with Louis Macari, who was and still is a fabulous colorist, but he was like the colorist to the rich and famous, but he's a lovely guy, and who also always supported AIDS causes when a lot of hairdressers would not do it. So I love him. He's a great guy. Anyway, they told me never to color my hair. Anyway, Caitlin put in like a temporary teal that would wash out in a week, and I went back 3 days later and said, "Make it permanent. I love it." So now I haven't. I let it wash out one time in the past couple of years, but then I put it back in again. It's just it's fun, and I don't know. I'm 70. If not now, when?
Thank you, recruits, for joining me and my fellow good troublemakers as we get involved and we make change. And I want to thank so much everyone at Manhattan Neighborhood Network, MNN, for giving us the space and the expert production skills that enable us to bring the show to you and so many other wonderful shows. Now, please join us next week when my guests, you heard right, will be Russell Pierce, formerly a legal aid attorney, and Jim West, an attorney in private practice. Russell and Jim, both of these guys worked on the legal case that enshrined brochy protections, which allows non-traditional family members to succeed to leases and apartments that are rent regulated. Very, very important. So we're going to have these two guys on who know an awful lot about fighting the good fight, and that you can win even when people say you can't. So there's a lot that we can all do, and all of us can do a little, and some of us can do a lot. It doesn't matter, just do something, because every little bit helps. So please, get out there, find your people, and get to work. And this has been The Recruiters. Thank you.